Parents of Reddit, if when discussing colleges with your kid, they said to you, but Steve Jobs was a college dropout, how would you respond? Story 1. Steve Jobs had a business plan, a team, and investors before he dropped out. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out from Harvard with a working product and investors. If my kid has a business plan and investors already, sure, go ahead and drop out. Story 2. I would say Steve Jobs had an alternative plan already in motion when he dropped out. Show me what you got and we'll discuss it. You might just convince me. Story 3. Teach your kids that education is important. It doesn't matter whether it's college or not. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates both dropped out, but they didn't stop learning. That's what you need to emphasize. They dropped out because they were busy building the foundation of corporate empires, chasing their ideas and creating businesses. College isn't necessary for most people, especially not for those highly motivated entrepreneurs. Story 4. My kids are too young to make these arguments, but hypothetically, my answer would be around probabilities. You can be successful without a college degree, and you can be a failure with one. And I'm not going into definitions of success and failure here, but the probability of success goes up with a degree, etc. If it is the right choice for my kids, I'd also support them in not going to college. Story 5. I would ask what their career aspirations are and what their actionable steps are to achieve that goal. College isn't for everyone, but they need to have a plan for what they're doing otherwise. Are they an artist? Do they want to go into the trades? Are there relevant certifications outside of a college degree they want to work on? They need to at least be working. Forcing teens to go to college and commit to all of that debt without a plan is so damaging, so I don't understand dragging them off to college just because. Story 6. Not my kids, but I've said to students and a sibling. I've said, referencing Mark Zuckerberg, he dropped out of Harvard, not just college. Jobs, Zuckerberg, Gates, etc. didn't drop out because it was too hard or so they could slack. They dropped out to form, now, billion-dollar companies. Story 7. So are gas station attendants, landscapers, infantrymen in the Army. The only reason the big billionaires who talk a lot about dropping out of college did so was because they personally didn't need what it was teaching them. Can you honestly say that for whatever your plan in life is, you understand your desired field enough to just disregard 6 months, 6 years worth of courses and still be successful? Story 8. Steve Jobs dropped out of college and continued to take classes there. He just didn't like the requirements for which classes he had to take. Reed College tolerated this. Whether they would have done that for anyone else who did that back then, or who tried doing something like that today. Though I'm sure at many larger colleges you could drop into large lecture hall classes when no one takes attendance and no one would even notice. Most college dropouts are not wired like that. Story 9. Let's look at the Forbes richest 20 people in America, Brendan. Elon Musk, BA and BS from Penn. Jeff Bezos, BSc from Princeton. Larry Ellison, attended but did not complete degrees at UIUC and U Chicago. Warren Buffett, PS and MS from Penn, UN, Lincoln, and Columbia. Larry Page, BSS from Michigan, MS from Stanford. Bill Gates, attended but did not complete degree at Harvard. Sergey Brin, BSU, Maryland, Mississippi, Stanford. These are the most extraordinarily wealthy people in the U.S., so they're outliers themselves, with amazing levels of talent, drive, and luck. Even still, the people on this list went to college. Even the people who didn't graduate in this list went to college, because it exposed them to people and ideas that helped them build their businesses. Either that, or they inherited their massive wealth. The Waltons, the Marcys. And you're not inheriting any massive wealth from us, Brendan. The average salary for someone with a high school diploma is $40K per year. The average salary for someone with a college degree is $68K per year. That means, on average, a person with a high school diploma will earn $2.401 million working until age 67. A person with a college degree will earn $3.06 million, with the high schooler starting to work at age 18 and the college student working at 22. If your career aspirations don't require a college degree, we'll support you going to community college, getting a certificate in a trade, or getting business or entrepreneurship experience. But your odds are just better if you go. And you know, it's not a bad experience either. Story 10. So is Bill Gates. So, bring me your business plan, and let's see if you have legitimate ideas for following a harder, rarer path, or just want to avoid more education. Are you considering a trade instead? It is good to consider the value of something as expensive money and time-wise as college, especially if you are taking out loans, but don't think the odds favor you duplicating what Gates or Jobs did. They are a few in billions. Story 11. My 13-year-old already asked me about it. I told her, if you really want to go, do it. But remember that college isn't necessarily for everyone. You still have a couple years to sit on the idea. I personally don't care if she does or doesn't go. But if she doesn't go, then she's going to enter the workforce ASAP. She can live at home as long as she likes, but if there's no schooling going on, it's going to be work. My parents didn't raise me to be a freeloader, and I'm not raising her or her brother to be freeloaders either. Story 12. That's a good point about Steve Jobs, but it's important to remember that his path was unique. For most people, college provides valuable skills and opportunities. It's about finding what works best for you and your goals. Education can play a big role in reaching those goals, but it's also important to explore all your options and plan accordingly. Story 13. TLDR. I think it's important to emphasize that you should have a plan. Whether someone wants to go into a trade, to uni, to college, start their own business, work, or anything else, they would have a plan with goals. Steve Jobs definitely had a plan. It's also totally okay if your plan doesn't work out. In fact, reassure them that most people's plans don't work out. That's still kind of part of life's plan sometimes. If you do something and find out you don't like doing it at an early age, that's great. Move on to the next thing while you're young. The unfortunate reality is that you become a completely different person throughout your 20s, and you shouldn't feel too obligated to stick to something you decided when you were 18. Story 14. For every 1,000 dropouts, how many Steve Jobs are there? But I wouldn't force them to go if they didn't want to. It would be a waste of money if they don't actually take it seriously. Even working a minimum wage job is better than going into massive debt and flunking and working minimum wage dead-end jobs. Story 15. My kids were never forced to go to college as long as they found a different purpose. My son currently works a decent paying job, but is planning to go back to school soon. He's 19. It's his choice. My daughter, 25, ended up at cost school because a regular college wasn't her vibe. She makes good money. College isn't for everyone. I didn't go either, so why would I force it on my own? Now, if one of my kids used Steve Jobs as their reasoning, I'd question their logic and ask them to provide actual reasons they don't want to attend college. But TBF, my kids wouldn't be asked why in the first place. I would just ask, what are you going to do instead? Story 16. If you think one piece of anecdotal evidence is enough to make this claim, maybe it's high schools you should be looking at again. No kid of mine is going to beat me in an argument with this weak-ass shit. For everyone Steve Jobs, there are dozens of deadbeats who wish they had more career options. I'm not saying college is for everyone. I am saying pointing at Steve Jobs as an example is brain dead. Story 18, I can't speak much on Steve Jobs. When growing up, it was Bill Gates that was the college dropout. My answer to that was, well, Bill Gates got into Harvard. You couldn't pass, insert bullshit class from not Harvard. And I add, Harvard has a policy that you can return any time. Most colleges don't. You get X months to 1 year, and then it's pay dollar and reapply and see. Story 19. It depends entirely on the context. Are they looking into programs that are worth paying for compared to their expected income? Like becoming an RN or a CPA? Or do they want to major in communications at a mid-tier private liberal arts school with $60K/year tuition? You have to steer the conversation based on that. The truth is that some degrees are always valuable and some really aren't. I'd go so far as to argue that the degree doesn't usually matter unless you have letters after your name. And even then, it sometimes doesn't. Story 20. Steve Jobs was also a strongly driven individual who essentially won the lottery. For every Steve Jobs, there are 20,000 dropout who end up working at Wendy's. It takes a unique combo of charm, intelligence, drive, and luck to get to where he did, and he still ended up dead because of his own hubris. He was also roundly disliked by everyone who knew him personally, so is that really the person you want to emulate? Story 21. College is not for everyone. I really wish high school would push technology schools and skilled labor more than taking out student loans and going to big-name universities. Don't get me wrong. There are multiple jobs that require a degree, but what 16, 17-year-old knows what they want to do with the rest of their life? I sure as hell didn't. Blue-collar workers are seriously underestimated and easily pull in over 6 figures a year. If you have a skill and are good at it, statistically, you will never go without a job. I think taking a year off between high school and college is healthy. I personally took a year off, busted my ass to get into nursing school, only to drop out because of financial reasons, and as a college dropout, I was still able to become successful and financially stable, strictly by hard work and determination. Story 22. They don't have to go to college if they're going to start providing for themselves. But if I offer to pay for college, then I would rather them take that opportunity. Worst case for them, the flunk out, but financially no loss. It would ruin their GPA if they returned later, though. Most kids say they don't want to go to college because of financial reasons, not because I don't feel like it. Story 23. I mean, my kids are under 10, but I would ask them why they don't want to go to college. If it's because they aren't sure what they want to be, I'd empathize with them and say that struggling with identity is hard and deciding what you want from your future is harder. I'd align with their thoughts and tell them it's they're unsure of the steps they want to take in life. I'd then offer them solutions, as in, I hope I'll be acutely aware of what their interests are in life, or at least what their concerns are. I'd point out that there are other options other than college. For example, trade school is a fantastic option, and going the route of a journeyman is a viable path that will offer them stability in the future. Finally, I'd just appeal to their humanity and the people they've become. I'd tell them that my entire life has been centered around ensuring that they have a better life than what I had. I dropped out of college and think about that choice every day. But all roads I've taken led to them, and I don't ever regret that. And in the end, whatever they decide, I'll support them as long as they continue to have conversations with me, and we work together to get them set up for success in the future. So basically, I just talked to them how I was never talked to when growing up. I've made mistakes, but it's worked pretty well for me so far. Story 24. But he went to college. You can't drop out of college if you don't first go there and find out it's not right for you. Steve Jobs was successful because he tried a bunch of different things, and yes, some of them failed because that's the way things go. So maybe he did drop out of college, but if he didn't go down that avenue in the first place, he wouldn't have been as successful as he was. He'd have been someone who didn't do things in case they don't work out. Now, if college isn't an avenue you want to go down because you've got other endeavors in mind, then let's discuss it. Story 25. Ask them what their alternative plan is. Begin discussing what skill set they have. Does their future actually need a degree? If they are not naturally curious and can't handle setbacks, then it might be a good idea to follow a traditional educational route. One thing that is guaranteed is that there will be lots of failure in their pursuits. If this child is fine with working terrible jobs while focusing on their dream with an unwavering passion, then I don't see a problem. Story 26. You're right, and college isn't for everyone. What aspirations do you have that don't require a college degree? What are your plans if you choose not to go to college? There's no reason to put yourself into massive debt if you don't have to. Lots of trades offer apprenticeships where you get paid to learn a valuable, in-demand skill. Let's look at those instead. Story 27. Why parents don't give options for their offspring. Option 1. You go to college and I'll keep supporting you. Option 2. You don't go to college, but you will get a job and start paying rent. There, let the people who actually will have to go through the process of trying to get a diploma to choose what they want for their future. Story 28. Folks are pointing out that Jobs may not be the best person to emulate, but I definitely think about folks I know who didn't take the standard path through college, graduate HS, finish a degree in 4 years, go on to whatever is next. Honestly, if your kid is saying something like that, going directly into college may not be right for them. You can get your degree at any age, so I would ask them what their plan is for right after HS and keep talking to them about if college will be something they see themselves doing in a year, 2 years, 5 years. Lots of students start college right after HS, go into debt to do so, and flunk out. I'd rather my kid wait until they're ready to be successful than have them go when they aren't ready. Story 29, I'd show them a bell curve. I would explain that Steve Jobs is way out on the right end because of being exceptionally smart and exceptionally lucky. Then, way at the other end on the left are people who are exceptionally unsmart and exceptionally unlucky. I would then explain that most of the people who are in the middle are reasonably smart and reasonably lucky, and they are in college. I would then ask my child where they think fit on that curve. Story 30. Education is not a guarantee for success, but it is strongly correlated to it. If you asked him, if you had to buy a lottery ticket to either a draw that had a grand prize of $1 billion but had the odds as 1 in a billion, or a grand prize of $1 million but had the odds as 1 in 10, which would you choose? If he says the latter, explain to him that that's exactly what college is like. You have a reasonably good chance of getting a career that pays you millions of dollars over the life of your career. If he says the former, he's either too to make it to a college or he's delusional. Either way, you should probably save up for the lifetime of care you're going to have to give him. Story 31. Not a parent, but I would give this wager. I'm going to flip a coin 20 times. If lands on heads all 20 times, I'll give you $10K. If lands on tails anytime during the 20 flips, you get nothing, and I'm going to punch you in the stomach with all my strength. Do you want to take the deal? No? Oh, because you think it's bad odds. Yeah, your chance to avoid getting a gut punch is about 1 in a million. Same thing with trying to be a billionaire entrepreneur without college. Story 32. I was on another side of this. While this wasn't the argument I made, I still got it pushed on me and wish I dropped out earlier. My parents forced me through college and out of a well-paying developer job. I still resent them for it and will never not resent them. They were stupid and stubborn, refused to ever apologize and double and triple down, while I had to start from square minus one. At least now I have a worthless diploma. Gee, thanks. Story 33. He also dropped in on a specific class as an example. Read one of his speeches. Education and learning is not bad and it's needed, but paying exorbitant amounts and being told how to think is not education. It's indoctrination. Saddling yourself with $100K in debt to work at a bookstore as a cashier or a coffee shop is not smart. Story 34. Yes, buddy. Sometimes people end up in the right place at the right time. Meet the right people who can fund their passions, and lightning strikes, and you get a once-in-a-history startup that changes the world. But for every person who succeeds with that path, there's millions more who don't. If lightning strikes and you get the opportunity, I know you'll do amazing things, but you just can't sit back and expect life to come to you. You need to consider how you're going to build a safety net of education and experience to make sure you have a good life and good opportunities so you can have all the things you want in life without relying on luck. Story 35. Yeah, and people like Steve Jobs had a plan and knew what he was doing. He wasn't a good engineer, but he had friends that covered his weakness, while himself was brilliant in marketing and business and speaking to people. Look at the ratio of someone like Steve Jobs compared to average people's success. Most people don't make it. You can't bet your money on that 1 in a billion chance of making it. How many people are successful like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates? There's a reason why they're the top 1%. Betting your chance against that 1% chance or less is rather impulsive and immature, because you need to have a backup plan in case your plan A doesn't work. Otherwise, your kid is just going to end up on the street and homeless. College isn't for everyone, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to ask your kid what is their plan if they don't plan on going to college. How are they going to feed themselves and make money in the future? Money doesn't just appear out of nowhere, and you as a parent isn't always going to be there either. One day we're going to die, and who is going to be there to take care of your kid? Your kid is going to eventually have to grow up and be a responsible adult and take care of themselves. Story 36. I didn't drop out of college. I failed out twice. Some kids just aren't cut out for it, be it the academics, being a small fish in a much bigger pond, or simply the lack of passion. It doesn't mean they won't be successful in life. I ended up retiring before 40, and now I am full-time dad with a wonderful spouse and a 5-year-old in Hawaii. The important part to me as a parent is figuring out how college is not compatible with their dreams or passions. College is about learning through experience, and sometimes that very valuable experience is failure. If it was my son not wanting to go to college, I would very much want to have a deeper understanding of why. Is it the financial burden? Go to community and get an associate's first? Is it don't like school/academics? Look at trades apprenticeships or trade schools that align with what your kid is passionate about. College isn't right for everyone, but you have to dig a lot deeper into why in order to help steer them into a career and fulfilling life. Story 37. I'd respond with, okay, great. I'm not paying your tuition or housing. Don't go to college. Wasting my time and money. You go to a trade school and figure it out. Or you get a job and figure out your Apple company. Steve Jobs came from a rich family that could afford to house him at home. Steve Jobs was probably not a douchebag kid to his parents, and his parents probably saw something in him. You who has no skill beyond some varsity high school sports and still struggling with the SATs have nothing. Story 38. I'd say, honey, he dropped out of Reed College, which most of your peers couldn't even get into, and he kept reading and learning all his life. Then I'd show them the data on the return on investment for a college degree versus a high school graduate, which is in the range of $1.5 million when I last looked. Luckily, not an issue with my kids, though. One has already graduated, and the other is happy in school. Story 39, I'd say, cool. If you don't want to go, then don't go. College is a massive waste of time if you aren't doing it for yourself. I intentionally dropped out of university with only 2.5 classes left to go, just to prove to my parents that one doesn't need a degree to succeed. I make 6 figures and am a single dad of 2. My son doesn't care to go to college. He's a senior in high school and knows I'm successful with no degree, so he cares about college about as much as I do. Story 40. Steve Jobs saw an opportunity to be a pioneer in an emerging industry. Between finishing his degree and executing his entrepreneurial ambitions, he chose the latter, and it paid off. If your kid is facing that kind of dilemma, by all means let him do his thing. However, skipping higher education without having that said opportunity is unlikely to open up similar possibilities. Story 41. Steve College didn't drop out of college. He dropped into college, his words. He attended classes at Reed College in Portland without paying tuition. He said that the only benefit of paying was to get a diploma to show to an employer, and he didn't want to work for other people. Story 42. Don't force college on them. Let them work somewhere independently with staff accommodation for a while earning minimum wage. Let them save up while hating the work. Sure, living in a great spot is amazing, but earning minimum wage sucks after a while. Encourage them to travel the world with their savings. Watch their wide-eyed enjoyment. Basically do T4 school on them. Let them come to it on their own. Maybe they aren't ready, and that is okay. Story 43, I would say. Correction. He was a college dropout with rich parents. You don't have rich parents. So it's your duty to go to college so you can earn your fortune, and then your kid can be the college dropout with rich parents. Or don't. I really don't care. But I'll pay for it if you do go because I had poor parents and I couldn't afford college at all, and I'm just happy to be able to pay for my kids' education the way my parents couldn't. But if you don't go, I'll buy myself a boat instead. Up to you. Story 44. I actively plan on discouraging my kids from college. I have a PhD, my parents were teachers. I've seen the system from bottom to top my entire life, intimately. The fact of the matter is 90% of what people go to college for should not be a 3/4 year bachelor's degree. So many of my friends had less than 20 class hours a week and laughable assignments like 1 month to write 3,000 words. Everyone I know who did those courses either turned into a useless worker or didn't pursue a career in what they went to college for. Colleges are now degree factories, pure and simple. I'd sit down with them and explain how they can best use their time to make money doing what they want versus looking at a hobby they love as a career that college-latch work would just ruin on them. Story 45, I say think of all the people in the world, about 7 billion. Now think of all the high-profile tech CEOs that did not go to college, about 4. You have a 4 in 7 billion chance, better odds at winning the lottery a few times over before that might happen. It is always best to prepare for the worst than to think you have made it, and will never need to further your education. You live at home, have no job, pay no bills, so go to college and work from there. These people had built their business in their garage and showed signs that they were on to something before dropping out. When you get to that level, you will know, and so will I probably, but until then, graduate from college first. Story 46. I would say he didn't actually drop out technically. He did officially drop out to save his parents' tuition costs, but he continued attending by auditing classes where you are not graded. The credits don't count, but you pay a greatly reduced fee. He did attend all of college, just not officially, and he used those classes to first get a job at Atari as a computer technician before making the first Apple product. Life isn't so fanciful as the stories, and the story that he just dropped out and immediately became a brilliant millionaire investor is an embellishment at best. Story 47. You know who else were college dropouts? Your Uncle Steve, those guys who live under the bridge, the lady pulling beers at the bar, the dude who makes coffee, the people who deliver our Uber Eats. Funnily enough, dropping out of college doesn't automatically grant success. Neither does going to college, or running your own business, or even working for the man. Make your own luck and make your own life. Just don't rely on other people's experiences to try to craft yours. Story 48. Steve Jobs was one college dropout who through good fortune, good planning, and hard work made it real big. There's millions of other college dropouts whose names I don't know because they dropped out of college and did, all afterwards either through bad luck, bad planning, or bad work ethic. There's plenty of college graduates who are living comfortable lives in well-paying jobs that were made possible by their degree and their connections. I'd rather have a kid with a modest to well-off life that makes them happy than a once-in-a-lifetime chance that they'll become a tech billionaire, but more likely a mediocre nobody that struggles to get by. Story 49, college, as Americans are trained to think about it, is a mind-blowing late-stage capitalism scam. In much of Europe, university is a fraction of the cost, but less available. You have to not only be academically solid, you have to really want to study the thing you're applying for. It's normal to try 2 or 3 times before getting in. I mean, for FFS, what PCT of 18-year-olds have a solid life vision based on a lasting motivation? It's a very tiny number. This is why Sweden has a disproportionate number of startups, musicians, and actors, and also why the middle class can have a happy and peaceful life. People don't have fear and anxiety of how they will survive in the consumerist meat grinder. They get time and support to pursue things that interest them and see where they go. Trade schools lead to self-sustaining jobs where workers have basic rights like sick days and vacation. The ruling class in the U.S. has spent the last 40 years draining every penny they can out of the people's pockets with this college bullshit fear campaign and laughing all the way to their offshore tax shelters. Think about the catastrophic volume of college debt and the overwhelming worthlessness, both in earning power and actual education, of a typical college degree. Think about all the families and pressure to study something in lieu of finding out what you want to be as a person without destroying your life with debt. This is not a conversation I have had with my 21-year-old because he has not been brainwashed with fear, and I want him to be happy instead of an anxiety-ridden consumerist automaton. For the same reason, it's not a conversation I'll have with my youngest. College was a horrific scam 30 years ago before the internet. Everything any professor knows is on the internet. Any teenager can master the material that motivates them in a fraction of the time it takes to take a 4-credit course. So if you're in the US and this is a serious question, the answer is to tell them to figure out how to spend as much time in Europe as possible, au pair, volunteer program, so they can work their way to permanent residence and break your family free from the utterly insane anxiety spiral of American consumerist propaganda. Story 50. I dropped out because it felt meaningless to get a piece of paper that says I can do homework and utilize short-term memory for 6, 8 years while paying way too much damn money. I was stupidly also going to a costly school. I make $150,000 a year in my 20s, and I don't have social media aside from YouTube and Reddit. I figured 8 years of experience in a career field is worth more and is cheaper. I still did a lot of my own studying in my downtime and had to put a lot of hard work and determination into getting where I am. The difference was my own studying and training was spent focused on the topic I was applying it to. Every second felt meaningful. Every day I'd learn something new that would help me perform my job better. Obviously, I didn't apply for the position I have now. I had to get my foot in the door at a terrible company at the bottom with garbage pay, still better than most starter jobs, and prove myself and my work ethic. I work in a field that 99% of the time requires degrees, very technical field. If I have a young person apply with no degree, but they seem genuinely self-invested in it or passionate about the field, I roll the dice. And almost every time it's worked out that they end up being a much better employee than the college, know-it-all graduates that have to have their hand held every step of the way, and end up quitting because they can't have earbuds in at work, or they leave because they're not making as much as someone else without a degree, still multiple positions above them, and have worked from the ground up. But they can't even do half the work that person does, but they think their degree makes them special. College is a soft requirement for most jobs. Yes, I want my lawyer to have a degree and obviously be part of the bar, my doctor to have degrees and licenses to practice. There are things that require it due to the potential to cause lots of harm, either bodily or to a company. But to expect your kid to go to college not being in a very regulated and specialized field, such as medical, I ask why. I won't expect my kid to go to college, and I would have many conversations about it, and even the opportunity that it is. I believe too many parents and so forth, too many kids are told they need to go to college so they can be successful. Well, they go in unsure what they want to do because high school has always just gave them a path to follow. They go to college as instructed, they get out, pick a career field, and apply for jobs that fit their diploma with no luck. Why? Because people with experience are applying as well. And people with degrees and experience. What makes your kids stand out? Now they're upset because they can't get a job focused on their education. They could, but they might have to not apply for the good paying position and apply for a few spots below it. They're untrained, unskilled, and have no experience. Sure, they might move up the ladder slightly faster if they're good at applying what they've learned, but likely they just cram for tests as they were instructed by using flashcards. Remember it, test it, forget it. Now you have a degree, are working from the bottom up, and are 8 years behind. You could have got the entry-level position 4 years ago and been making $80K a year by now, but spent $80K to get a piece of paper to just wind up starting from the bottom, like the rest of the college grads because everyone went to college. Tell your kid to find a career field they have similar interests in. Obviously, none of it will 100% match interests, but something in the same realm. Then pick their favorite company in that space. Apply to work at the bottom entry-level spot. Do this with 3 or 4 interests, and eventually you find one that sticks, and then coach them through life to apply themselves. Invest in themselves by doing their own research and training at home. Vertical bar. You might be starting this part late. No hate, you probably parented exactly as you were told was right. Teach them the values of being better today than you were yesterday. Teach them that it's worth working hard even if they aren't making much because there's knowledge being earned. Teach them to work with pride. Give any task they do their best no matter how mundane. Teach them that even though a job's tasks might be stupid or their boss is an ass, maybe it's unfair that they agreed to do the job. Hold up their end of the bargain. The same go-getter attitude you went into the interview with, saying you're a hard worker, strive for greatness, yada yada. Yes, apply that to emptying the waste bin at the end of your shift. Teach them to take on extra responsibilities at work without a promotion, because the promotion is training. That extra work is a job interview for the next position. The position you're in now in your late teens, early 20s isn't a forever position, but you get time under your belt with experience, and you can put down you've done work of the position above you. You might get the promotion, maybe not the first time you apply, but don't feel like you failed. Keep at it. Always strive to do more responsibilities at work, relieve your boss of some of their tasks. Even if the place you work now doesn't promote you, you can put it on the resume that you have that experience and apply to the higher level position at another company. Continue moving forward in whatever field you choose. Never get content with knowledge. My parents didn't teach me these things. My dad taught me to take pride in my work, but I'll be honest, I was shamed when I dropped out of college, threatened to be kicked out, told I'd messed up and wouldn't be successful. And even though a paycheck is nice, sometimes success isn't just a paycheck. It's accomplishments, it's peace, happiness. Now he just always says he's sorry he didn't believe me or support me. I just tell him in his shoes I would have done the same. He had a rough life. He wanted better for his son. College was everyone's answer. Don't enable your kid to be lazy and a mooch, but support them if they say they don't want to go to college. Help them decide a career field. Help them study that field. Maybe steer them towards a vocational few-month school in that field if it's offered. Help them. Don't hinder their growth because they didn't choose what you had planned for them. Story 51. I coach an academic extracurricular, and I tell kids that it comes down to risk. Going to college or a trade will get you a single-family home in a decent suburb for your family, with a high probability of success. Mind you, most of these kids will be studying engineering, not basket weaving. Starting your own thing without the education might lead you to a meteoric rise, or you might hit the mud over and over again. If you're prepared to take the high chance of face planting in the mud for the small chance at big success, work for that. Story 52. Steve Jobs is a byproduct of location and timing. So in regards to location, is the area where we live a hotbed of any sort of developmental or emergent technology? No, we live in bum nowhere. In regards to timing, the present is always the best time to do anything, but unfortunately the location sucks. So what can we do with what we have? Also read the book Outliers. While not 100%, it covers people like Gates and Jobs. Story 53. If they want to live on my dime or under my roof, they need to go to college or a trade school. You can't force an adult to go to school, but you can let them know the benefits of higher learning and back it up with stats as it applies to things like income. Also let them know what the cost of living is. When I was in high school, I thought $1,000 was a ton of money. In college, I thought $30,000 was a good salary. When you get a taste of the real world, you realize how difficult it is and what it takes to thrive. That $1,000 barely covers 2 weeks of my son's kindergarten now. Steve Jobs was an outlier. He dropped out of college while he was on a trajectory to becoming a multi-millionaire. Let your kid know that once they build a successful business, they can drop out too. Story 54. People love to bring up the successes of Silicon Valley, but do not remember or know all of the failures in the wake of every successful company. Over 90% of them fail, and VC investment firms make returns of 15%, 27% across hundreds of companies. One Google or Apple makes up for the magnitudes of failures. So the answer to someone responding Jobs was a dropout is you are more likely to be one of the casualties than the success. Story 55. Same argument as wanting to be a professional athlete or a successful YouTube star. Your odds of making it are awfully small without a lot of hard work and luck. Also, most of those people started college. They just didn't finish because the idea they had was too good to ignore. If they really have the skill/drive/passion to pursue it, would be hard to say no. If they are just looking for a way to not put in the work at college, my support would disappear. Story 56. That's true, but he worked as a car mechanic and was into electronics and science. In high school, he and his friend Wozniak were avid inventors of electronics, which they would go on to sell. You know what he didn't do? Lay on the couch watching TikTok for 4 hours or doom scrolling late at night. If you don't want to go to college, then don't. But don't expect greatness to fall in your lap. You have to seize it yourself. As a millennial, the worst thing that was done to my generation was the high pressure to go to college, racking up with debt, and false promises that a degree, any degree, is better than none. Now an elevator repairman makes more money than a college grad. Story 57. Why don't you want to go to college? I'm not sure what the point of this post is, but it seems aimed at convincing the kid to go to college, and I would suggest that parents would be better served to ask their kids why they feel that way about college, and not worry about talking them into going. Talking someone into going to college is a massive mistake. Waste of their time, waste of their or your time and money, taking a spot from another person who actually wants to be there. It's not good all the way around. People forced to attend post-sec don't try and don't care. Story 58. Not everyone is college material. Maybe ask your kids to not make life-changing decisions at age 18. Maybe realize that having a degree from a college offers no guarantees. Maybe do some real research and find out who and how many college graduates who have a degree are working in their chosen field and are happy there. Maybe listen to your kid and stop forcing your regrets or accomplishments onto your kids. Let them make their own decisions. Story 59. College isn't a necessity to live a productive or successful life. Education is important. The means with which it's obtained aren't as important. If what you want to do in life doesn't require a degree, don't do it. Fulfill your aspirations your way, but also realize failure happens a lot, and if you ever slip on your effort or determination, you fall to the bottom of the ladder and will have to start over. A degree or trade certificate allows you to put your ladder higher, so no matter what your fall isn't nearly so far. Story 60. They put in hard work to get into reputable schools. Number 1. Number 2. They dropped out after raising the equivalent of 1 million or more in capital. So first, you have to get into a good school if you want to be like them. Second, you need to raise 7 figures in investment capital by 20. I will absolutely help you do both if that's the path you want. Keep in mind that even after Jobs dropped out, he audited several classes at Reed, such as Shakespeare and dance. Don't equate folks like Jobs and Zuckerberg with dropping out of college and simply ceasing education. That is not what they did. Something along those lines. Story 61. I would share real-world examples from my own experience. While I didn't finish college, I've been fortunate to work my way up the corporate ladder and find success. That said, there's no doubt that having a degree would have made the journey easier. A degree opens doors and provides valuable networking opportunities that can benefit you throughout your career. For many roles, a degree may not be required, but it definitely gives you an advantage. College also offers a shared experience that many people go through, creating a common bond and valuable connections. Story 62. Steve Jobs took a freshman college-level class when he was in his senior year of high school, and he had already shown a lot of aptitude with electronics before he ever stepped foot in a college. He also did this in the 70s, when what you could do mattered way more than who actually taught you to do it. The average rent was less than $250 a month, for S sake. So unless your argument is that you are just as talented as Steve Jobs, which I'm sorry, but you have not shown any kind of similar giftedness in any field whatsoever, and that the world has remained entirely unchanged for the past 50 years, then your argument is as unintelligent as you're being right now. So you need to either show me something that is as impressive as what Steve Jobs did, or you need to leave my house if you want to drop out of college, not go at all. Oh, and not for nothing, but while Jobs did drop out, he very crucially still went to several classes because he was auditing them. So he was still learning from those courses. You're just going to sit in my couch and play video games all day. Come up with a plan, like he did, and then come back to convince me. Otherwise, start filling out the FAFSA packet. Story 63. Out of all the absolutely disrespectful comments left here for a great man like Steve Jobs, here's my piece. Yes, he didn't go to college, but he tried his best to educate his daughter Lisa. And he even said, educate your children so that they enjoy learning through education. Now, even if you're not going to do college, you need to educate yourself and be strict about it, which is really not one of the important qualities of the newer generations. College gives you an option to do whatever course you want to, and also make sure you do get educated in the field you are interested in. Story 64. The same thing I've been telling my kids for years. College is not the end-all be-all, but it opens up a lot of doors for you. When you are that young, you want to keep as many doors open as possible. If you're entrepreneurial enough to start up a company, a college degree certainly won't hurt you. But if you are like 99.99% of the population and are not the next Steve Jobs, that degrees is your ticket to a better paying job. Story 65. I'd probably say, what is your plan instead of college? And listen and then ask, what do you think Steve Jobs would think of your plan? And then just say, okay, babe, and let them think on it. Haha. I would never require my kids to go if they truly don't want to / aren't willing to. I will encourage it, however. I think watching me work full-time, care for them, and go to college full-time at night will definitely reinforce the idea of how important it is, so I doubt this will come up for my kids.